Northern State Governors Forum is reiterating its support for the creation of state police and is calling on the National Assembly to expedite action on the enactment of the legal framework for its takeoff. The forum also expressed concerns over violent killings in the north-central region and the resurgence of Boko Haram in the northeast. They want the federal government to review its security strategies. Arise News correspondent Nisi Gabriel reports.
Bordered by killings in northern Nigeria and other pressing regional concerns, governors and traditional rulers from the 19 northern states are gathered in Kaduna State to deliberate on insecurity, education, climate change, human capital development, and infrastructure deficits. Host Governor Sani says the North owes President Bola Ahmed Tinubu a debt of gratitude for prioritizing efforts to address the region's infrastructure deficit.
I must not conclude this welcome address without commending President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, G7, for his unwavering commitment to addressing the infrastructural deficit in northern Nigeria. One of Mr. President's key interventions in our region is the long-abundant Abuja, Kaduna, Zaria, Kano dual carriageway. The road connects the federal capital territory to about 12 states in the north central, northwest, and northeast. Mr. President will go down in history as a leader who listened to the cries of the northern people and took decisive action.
The governor of Gombe State, who doubles as the chairman of the Northern States Governors Forum, expressed deep concern over the outbreak of violence in parts of the north-central region and the renewed activities of Boko Haram in sections of the northeast.
While we commend Mr. President for his sustained commitment to Nigeria's security, we must acknowledge the recent setbacks in our efforts to combat insecurity and other social vices. The resurgence of Boko Haram activities in some parts of the northeast and the outbreak of violent killings in the north-central call for immediate review of strategies and greater synergy between the federal, state, and local security architecture.
The northern governors went into a closed-door session for further deliberations. Arising from their deliberations, the forum expressed its support for state police, calling on the National Assembly to hasten every legal framework necessary for its establishment. They are also pushing for joint border surveillance.
After exhaustive deliberations on matters of regional interest, particularly security, the forum released the following communique. Forum also resolved to urgently set up interstate platforms to coordinate surveillance on our joint borders. The forum also reiterated its support for the creation of state police and called on the National Assembly to expedite action on the enactment of the legal framework for its takeoff.
The northern governors commended President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for his sustained commitment to addressing the security challenges and infrastructure deficits in northern Nigeria. They also pledged to increase support to the federal government security forces. With its next meeting in August, residents of the North hope resolutions from this meeting yield results. Nisi Gabriel, Arise News, Kaduna.
All right, we have the governor of Kano State, Sani. He joins us, Kaduna State rather, joins us live from Kaduna State. Glad to have you join us on Newsnight, Your Excellency, Governor Sani.
Pleasure having you.
Good. Right. Your Excellency, it's interesting that all the governors are agreed on this, but it won't be the first time. Should the nation and your citizens take your word for it this time?
I think it depends on the question you're asking about. For me, this is one of the most important meetings we held here in Kaduna, and of course, you will agree with me that all the 19 northern governors attended the meeting. All our traditional rulers, from the Sultan of Sokoto down to emirs and chiefs from 19 northern states, were also in the meeting. And of course, we sat down together collectively and come up with a position And of course, unanimously we agree. There are a lot of number of issues we came up with that were not even in the previous meetings we had. Of course, I'm happy today the Sultan of Sokoto and the traditional rulers came up with a report that they sat down, reached out to relevant communities within the 19 northern states, and of course have dialogue and discussion with communities. And they came up with a position also. We look at their position, we deliberate on the position collectively, and of course governors also share their own experience, and we believe no state in northern Nigeria can handle the issue of insecurity in isolation. We have to work together as a team. And of course we believe insecurity is one issue that needs to be addressed if we really want to achieve our goal in addressing the issue of poverty, the issue of education, the issue of healthcare, as well as infrastructure in northern Nigeria. And of course, one of the major resolutions we came up with today in our communique was the decision to collaborate deeper within the states, and also to continue to support the relevant security agencies. Of course, we also agree that it is important that we push the issue of the creation of state police. If you recall, some months ago, I came up with a position that was clear that we are lacking boots on ground. We cannot win this battle through kinetic approach. We have to look at non-kinetic. Non-kinetic means we need to deepen our engagement with relevant security agencies, as most importantly the communities that are involved. And of course sharing intelligence gathering, and also trying as much as possible to work with all the relevant stakeholders, from religious leaders, community leaders. I'm happy we're on the same page right now. But most importantly, the creation of state police. If you recall, in one of my interviews, I made it clear that when I was in the Senate, the 9th Senate, I sponsored a bill for the creation of state police. We lost it, and I can understand. We lost it because at that critical moment, many states in northern Nigeria, and even some few in the southern part of Nigeria, governors were opposed to the creation of state police because of some of the position of their followers who were skeptical about state police. But today, it is clear that many states in northern Nigeria and southern part of Nigeria have created what we call vigilance services. In the southwest, they call it Amotokuni. In the north, it depends on the states. We have different vigilance services, but because of the Firearms Act in Nigeria, most of these vigilance services cannot be able to hold AK-47 or AK-49 or some sophisticated weapons. So you're sending those vigilance groups to death sentence because they cannot confront the bandits. But if you create state police, the law will allow them to hold some firearms, including AK-47. And because of the fact that we are lacking boots on ground, we have a lot of ungoverned space in Nigeria as we are speaking. So these are some of the issues we discussed today. I'm happy. For the first time, all of us are on the same page. And right now, as we are speaking, the National Assembly, particularly the House of Reps, have already done the second reading, and we're going to push it to ensure that we at least create state police in Nigeria. And at the level of National Economic Council, I can tell you 35 governors already made submission, and collectively we agree on the creation of state police. So we are on the same page, both at the level of National Economic Council, the level of Northern Governors Forum, including even the Nigerian Governors Forum. So I think, and the National Assembly are also pushing for it. And I think that's the only way we can resolve the issue of insecurity and address the problem in Nigeria.
All right. Your Excellency, you have raised some very pertinent issues, and we're going to break them down one by one. Fingers over time have pointed to poverty and porous borders as the root causes of insecurity, particularly in the north. And how are the governors addressing the issue of poverty, which people have taken advantage of, and porous borders?
Thank you very much. Which is this is also a very interesting question. If you followed my position clearly when we in Kaduna, we led the issue of non-kinetic approach. We made it clear. And a lot of governors also agree with me, both in the north and in the south, that non-kinetic approach does not mean asking the military or the relevant security agencies to put their weapons on the ground. No, it's about good governance. Good governance means reducing the level of poverty, creating jobs, addressing social crises we are facing in relevant communities within our states. And of course, if you look at the Northwest in particular, look at developmental indices in the Northwest, you can agree with me. This issue of banditry, insurgency, if you look at the history, it just started seriously around 2016. As of 2014, 2013 is only the issue of Boko Haram in the Northeast, which for me is more of an ideological issue. Later it became also an economic issue. But if you look at the Northwest, that is the reason why the first thing we did is looking at the symptoms and the drivers of insecurity. If you look at the symptoms and the drivers, you'll agree with me, is poverty, unemployment, and most of those issues are the drivers. Because, you know, when you have hundreds of our people joining this issue of banditry, you agree with me that it's very easy for them to be recruited. And of course, how do we address the issue? From 2016, if you look at developmental indices in the northwestern part of Nigeria, you realize, you agree with me that a lot of people were financially excluded, meaning about 60 to 70% of our people in rural areas were living below the poverty line. That is the drivers of insecurity, and that was the symptoms, because you have to first and foremost address the issue of poverty, unemployment, create jobs. There are many areas we need to look into. But today I'm happy, as I'm speaking with you, every governor have agreed that we need to focus on most of those issues. Only last week in Kaduna, we called for financial and economic summit in Kaduna. When we look at that, we look at the number of people that were completely financially excluded. If you realize with what we did, or you will agree with me, when I came in, the first 2 months, what I did was signing executive order on financial inclusion. And I'm happy today, many states in northern Nigeria are also doing the same thing, because meaning we have to address the issue of financial exclusion, not only opening bank accounts for our people. Yes, we opened about 2.5 million bank accounts for our people that were unbanked. That's number one. But opening bank accounts is only first step. Second step is ensuring that the social intervention, social investment programs of both the federal government and state government reach to the right people, meaning they have money in their accounts, doing something for their livelihoods, supporting smallholder farmers, supporting SMEs. When we came in, the SMEs in Kaduna State, for instance, were not more than about 700 to 1,000. But today, we have supported the SMEs and even micro and medium small enterprises, which were now over 30,000 in Kaduna. Why do we do that? Because we believe we have to create SMEs as well as micro and small medium enterprise so that we can support them, because if you look at the workforce we have in Nigeria, not only in Kaduna State, SMEs are the ones that really provide jobs for the people. If you look at the percentage, over 70% of the people working are working in small businesses, not big corporations in Nigeria. So if you want to address poverty, you have to now have this enabling environment. Government have to deliberately at least intervene, support the people, create jobs. And agriculture for us in northern Nigeria, we are also discussing on the issue of agriculture, which is key, because every state in northern Nigeria, if you agree with me, most of the people are relying on farming, and we believe farming should not be allowed to be just about going to farming just for you to sustain your family. It should be business. And to be business, you have to create enabling environment for them. Number one, they have to have access to credit. And that's what we did by supporting smallholder farmers. Because of that, we are gradually addressing the problem of poverty, creating jobs, creating economic prosperity for our people, particularly those in the rural areas. That is the way to address the issue of insecurity, by investing in our people.
All right, Your Excellency. Well, the issue of porous borders, I'm sure you're going to address it. But before you address that, you probably answered that later. There's also the fear that governors will hijack state police for political purposes. Doesn't that bother you? And if that's the case, how do you guard against this?
I have answered this question probably 12 times. But let me answer it, then at least this will be the 13th times I'm answering this question. I answered it about 10 times when I was in the Senate, when I sponsored the bill for the creation of state police. That time I wasn't a governor, but I made it clear to everyone. Look, sitting here, I can tell you I sponsored 32 bills as a senator, and I was one of the senators that had about 3 national bills that became law in Nigeria, assented by Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari. One of the major bills I sponsored that became law was Banking and Other Financial Institution Act. And let me tell you something before I answer this one, just for emphasis. When I was sponsoring Warfare Act, it was obsolete for 29 years. A lot of commercial banks were skeptical about the amendment, but at that point, I had to sit down with them and make them understand. South Africa, if you look at their Warfare, Banking and Other Financial Institution Act, it usually normally amended after every 5 years. If you go to Egypt, it's after every 3 years. But in Nigeria, it was obsolete for 29 years until amended in 2020. Today, all these fintech companies are talking about, all the financial technology companies are in existence today, and they're being regulated by the Central Bank of Nigeria because of the Warfare Act I amended that was signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari in 2020. Today, if you ask the Central Bank governor, they are relying on the Warfare Act we amended. I did that law. That was one of the laws I did in Nigeria. The state police, let me also at least try as much as possible to address the problem. Law is about the people that crafted the law. If you want the state police to be abused by the governor, it depends on the drafters of the law or the act. So when you now decide to say, let's have state police, you can make it clear in the act, in the bill, before it became law, because you have to go around for engagement by the stakeholders. You have to also bring experts at the public hearing to make their own point and also make their inputs. Or in that, before it became law, you have to make it clear that state police will only focus on addressing crimes, not political issues. Where there's a political dispute, the federal police force should take precedence. That is how it's done everywhere in the world. When you go to America, we have state police, we have federal police. Go to other countries. But in Nigeria, we are behaving as if we don't know how you craft a law. Law, it depends on the drafters of the law. And that's why at the beginning I made it clear that it's not the governors that will do the law. It is not even the president. It is the members of the National Assembly, both the House of Reps and the Senate. They have to come together, agree, and the Senate will have their version, the House will have their version, then they will have a conference committee to look at it collectively. After that, they will now go out to reach out to all the relevant stakeholders. It could be zonally, maybe all the 6 geopolitical zones, or they can do it state by state. You bring experts to make their inputs. After that, you will come up with, then you send it to the House of Assemblies of the 36 states. And at least 2/3 of the state assemblies must endorse it and agree with it before you bring it back. So lawmaking is because creation of state police, it can only be done through constitutional amendment. It's not just by act. So look at the difference. So if you ask any lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but because I was a lawmaker, that's why I understand this. So why are people afraid of state police? That is the point. We need to relegate politics and focus about governance and issue of security.
All right, that's understood, Your Excellency. Before I let you go, just 2 questions that you can answer, if possible, briefly. I listened to your communique. One of the things you talked about was interstate platforms. The question is, how will this work? And then some Nigerians are terribly angered at this question of reintegrating, whether it's Boko Haram or the bandits, into the society. You know, these people that have committed several crimes, killings, murders. What's your attitude to that? I mean, because sometimes these people,
Let me,
the question is that they go back and continue to commit this mayhem.
okay, thank you very much, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about this issue. I'm happy you also asked this question. Let me clarify this issue very well. Because you see, when we came with Kaduna model, remember, there are a lot of people that went to the media, misinforming the public, coming up with a very wrong narrative. For instance, as a governor sitting here, I just talked about the issue of Firearms Act, the issue of security. No governor has any power to grant amnesty to anybody when he's a criminal. You can only go to the prison when some people committed offense and look at the relevant powers you have as a governor to say, okay, I'm intervening and I'm releasing so people because they committed so offense. But the issue of saying because this person was a Boko Haram or this person was a bandit, now as a governor, because of we are trying to achieve peace and unity, let me grant amnesty to the person. I don't even accept that. What we are doing in Kaduna is not amnesty. What we are doing is peace and reconciliation. There are two things that are different. So when you look at Kaduna, let me give you Kaduna as a model. When we started our non-kinetic approach, that's why we're succeeding. It is a community-based initiative. It's not government. So the communities met us and said, look, through their emails and the relevant community leaders, and said, look, we are tired. We want peace and reconciliation. We know these people that were involved in these things. And we want to sit down and look at the possible way of addressing this issue. And I made it clear to all of them, look, I will not talk to you until I see a clear roadmap to addressing these problems. And they came to me, they said this is their own position. So we implemented their own position. That's why today in Kaduna, we are achieving what we're achieving is just peace and reconciliation. It's not granting amnesty to anybody. We don't have Boko Haram in Kaduna for now. What we are thinking about, they said is they're insurgents and bandits, which for me, if anybody in our community decide to say, look, I am looking for justice. Do not agree of what A, B, C, D have done to me. Sani, I can tell you I will lead the fight for justice because all my life, you know me very well, I fought for rights of the people and justice because as a civil rights activist, I went to prison many times, I went to detention many times, fighting for justice, fighting for freedom, fighting for equality. So that is the reason why I will not sit down here and agree that when people committed offense against someone, we should allow them to go scot-free. When someone raised the issue and said, I need justice, I will fight for justice for him. That is the position. And before I finish, let me also address the issue. Before I finish, give me a minute.
Okay, just address it in a minute.
The issue of in a minute, the issue of borders you're talking about, because let me not forget about that. You see, I came out openly many times and said, look, we have ungoverned spaces in Nigeria, particularly in the Northwest. Go to our forests. You will agree with me. We don't have boots on ground. The forest borders are things that are causing a lot of concern. As of today, we can only address that problem if we achieve the non-kinetic approach. No amount of effort we can do. But if we create state police, I can assure we can be able to address the issue of forest borders because the problem with forest borders is lacking boots on ground. Let's be fair to the security personnel in Nigeria. You can have less than 400,000 police personnel, less than 300,000 military personnel in the whole of Nigeria. And look at our borders around the country. And you expect them, how many custom officers do we have? How many immigration officers do we have? We cannot address that problem except we have more boots on ground. And having more boots on ground means creation of state police. That is the solution to the problem. Thank you very much.
Chair Governor Sani, Governor of Kaduna State, for your time.